On the agenda tonight, we're going to be taking a look at Lenny Kravitz performing Fly Away in 2023 and comparing that with the original release from 1998. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, this analysis video is going to be really interesting for loads of different reasons because just before I start an analysis video, I've got it all loaded up and I have a quick look through to get a general idea of the data that we're looking at. And this one was really surprising and it didn't show me what I thought I would see. But after not seeing what I was expecting to see, I then dug into it a little bit deeper, and this is why it's going to be really interesting because I'll be able to show you exactly what's going on. So the request was to take a look at this live performance in 2023 and to determine whether it was lip-synced or not. So that's exactly what we're going to be taking a look at tonight. And the link to this original video is going to be in the description below if you guys want to watch that, because this is an analysis. So I'm going to be jumping into just the lead vocal and we're going to be taking a look at what we can see on screen. I have isolated the vocal, run it through the pitch monitoring software for the live performance, which is going to be on the right hand side, and the original release is on the left hand side. Now, when we just have a quick listen to the live vocal, I'm going to let it play through so you can get a vibe for it.
I wish that I could fly into the sky so very high, just like a dragonfly.
And what I'm going to do now is play the audio from the performance with the original release.
I wish that I could fly into the sky so very high, just like a dragonfly.
So I think you'll agree that it sounds really similar. But sounding really similar doesn't mean it's the same vocal, the same audio, and the same vocal take that has been recorded. So when I move one graph on top of the other one, you'll see how we don't have really any perfect replications. When I'm moving this as in time for each vocal phrase as possible, you'll see that when we do hit a line here that replicates like that, over here we're now out of sync, and here we've got a totally different pitch on this particular part of the note that was held, and the same down here. So even though this looks close and it sounds really close, I do not believe that this is the same vocal that they recorded in the studio on the original release that they're now miming to in 2023. But we also have some really interesting things happening, like a little bit further on, as I have just shifted it here, and from where we were, it's not actually that further forward. So getting back to this part, you'll see how we start to get these kind of echoes going on. And when I now kind of move it over the top, it looks like it is really close because we've got the lines now perfectly over each other. But what I want to focus on is this part here, and I'm going to zoom in on this. So here we go. This tiny characteristic that we have when we move one over the next, it's just a tiny detail. Now, of course, we are comparing the original vocal, which is really clean and precise, to a live vocal where there is actually more delay on the live vocal than there was on that studio recording. But that kind of thing matching up at exactly the same, 2/100ths of a second in the performance, I feel like that's just a little bit too coincidental. But again, this is really interesting because we've then got other parts of the performance where the lines aren't replications of each other. Like when I move over to the side here, you can say, well, what's going on here, because the pitch is clearly different from this peak here, and the line it isn't overlapping here. There are things that are pointing towards, well, maybe it is a live vocal, but then you've got other things that have happened in a fraction of a second, literally 100th of a second, that match the original recording. Looking through the whole performance, which we won't do here because it will take hours, just pointing out tiny bits that match up to the 100th of a second, but then other parts that don't match up. So because this is totally objective, it's not enough data for me to conclusively say that is the original vocal from the release, even though some people, might argue against that. But I took it one step further. So when I went back to listening to the original release, I thought the chorus sounds identical. Lenny's voice sounded identical when he sang. So we're listening to the original release now. Have a listen to this.
Oh, I want to get away.
So that vocal, I'm just going to move it forward and we'll listen again. And now this is the second time he sings it.
I want to get away.
Now, to my ear, that sounds identical. So just to explain what we're looking at here, this is the second time that Lenny is singing, "Now I want to get away." And I'm going to now bring on screen the first time he sang it, at the beginning of the chorus. And you'll see it's exactly the same. It's a copied and pasted vocal. So this is why it sounds identical, because it is. It's the same vocal. And I'll just do a very quick matchup, but you can see here as we move it up, once you get the kind of lines in place, they'll overlap each other. So we've got a copied and pasted vocal. And I mean, as we go through, you'll start to see this kind of echo thing happening all the time. So within this song, we've got loads of vocal phrases that Lenny hasn't sung twice. He's sung them once, and then in the studio they've literally copied and pasted his vocal across for the rest of the song. So, as we keep on scrolling through, you'll see, obviously we've got the verses, but yeah, here we go. As soon as we get to the chorus again, you'll see it's the copied and pasted vocal. So he only sang that chorus line once, and this is why it sounds identical, because it literally is identical. But obviously the verses have different lyrics and probably different melodic components to it, so they won't match up then. So I thought, I wonder if for the live performance they've done the same thing. Just quickly before we do look at that, I want you guys to listen to this really carefully, because the isolating process has picked something up which I think might actually be, it's really low, but you can hear it in there. It sounds like it might be Lenny's actual voice. Have a listen. It's kind of, yeah. It's definitely somebody singing the melody and the line of the song. Have a listen again. There's definitely a voice in there. As to whose voice it would be, I mean, Lenny would be singing the lower line, I'm sure. So what I did was exactly the same thing that I did with the original release, in that I've now offset the choruses. So this one that we're looking at is the second time, and this is now the live vocal, the second time that Lenny is singing his lead vocal line. And I'm now going to bring on screen the first time he sang it in this chorus. Again, this is live, and we start to see a bit of an echo going on, actually more than an echo. So when we now move this up and get things in line, that is the same audio, and you can even see here in the corner how the lines connect. So what we're looking at here is a live vocal that is a copied and pasted vocal. So every time that he's singing it live, you can't do this live. So we therefore know that this is a pre-recorded vocal. So even though it doesn't match up with the original release. So this is why it's really interesting, because the objective data will always show you what's happening. So as soon as you put it over the top, and the fact that this is just a perfect match to these points. So these points here, when they overlap each other. They're happening to the 100th of a second. It's something that you can't do. And just the personality of the lines and the way that they flow kind of through each other, and the fact that this line continues itself, even though, you know, when I get rid of that, you'll see that that line actually links the other line. So yeah, it's absolutely the same. But what's really interesting is there wasn't enough data to conclusively say that it was the vocal from the original recording, but I'd be really interested, not that they would ever tell you or tell me, but I'd be really interested to know exactly what they did. Whether they've been in the studio and they've recorded a live vocal that they mime to, but they've intentionally made it different to the original release, so that if somebody were to analyze it in detail, and this is 2023, so yeah, relatively recent, I was probably doing my analysis videos at that time in this kind of detail, so I'm wondering whether they have done that. And I'm not saying that they've done it through watching my videos, but to stop it from maybe being traceable. So the mistake that they've made here is by copying and pasting a vocal in a live performance, because you can't do that. But that's exactly what we're seeing here. So in order to answer this request and the question that came with the request, I can say conclusively that it's not, you know, note for note or melody for melody, pitch for pitch, exactly the same as the original release. But what I can say is that the choruses have been copied and pasted on what they are miming to. So yeah, it's, I think, probably a designated live track that they use that has elements of that original recording in, but in exactly the same way in the studio they copied and pasted Lenny's voice, they've done that for the backing track lead vocal. They've copied and pasted his voice. So that's why it sounds identical in every chorus. And just for those who are curious, I've run it on a little bit. So, you know, going back to where we were, kind of from here, moving it on. When we get to the chorus, and I'm going to try and kind of see, there we go. As soon as we get to the chorus, which is the copy and paste, you'll see the echo straight away. So I just want to explain something very quickly, because I understand that people don't necessarily appreciate the vocal lines we're looking at, and you haven't looked at them for as long as I have with all the analysis videos that I've done in the past. So when we're looking at this, the important thing to look at are these peaks. And because this is not the same vocal happening at the same time, it's the same vocal happening at different times, because there's live instrumentation, backing vocals, you might get little anomalies coming out like this that are just part of that backing having changed. But the lead vocal that is being supplied by Lenny is exactly the same. And the reason that we know that is because, look, on this chorus, the pitch monitoring software didn't even pick it up as clearly because of, you know, the other stuff going on. It's a different time that the vocal's being sung. But when we then move the other chorus on top, as soon as we get to the lines, these horizontal lines of pitch, you'll see how they now line up perfectly. And when I say about lining up perfectly, I'm talking about these points here. So this point has happened at 100th of a second, and it's happened at exactly the same pitch. So has this, so has this. So there's no way that you can do this. But I just wanted to explain it in a little bit more detail, because I would not say a vocal is a copied and pasted vocal if I had any doubt that it was, and if these peaks didn't match up to the 100th of the second. So yeah, really interesting one tonight, because I started out not being able to give you a conclusive result of saying that it's definitely miming live in 2023, but eventually we got there because of the copied and pasted nature of the lead vocal. There you go. That is what Lenny was doing in 2023, which of course is a huge shame. But that's the way that live music is going nowadays. So thank you guys for requesting this particular performance to take a look at for tonight. And as always, keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!